Welcome to your second podcast on Shakespeare. This one is on Shakespeare's rhetorical devices. This is a longer handout of 5 pages with most of his major uses defined and some examples given. I don't expect you for the quiz to know all of these words. What I need you to do, however, is to be familiar with the types of devices Shakespeare used when he was writing, so that when you are reading Shakespeare, looking at a line, you'll have more appreciation for what he is doing. Let's look at some of the more common ones used by Shakespeare. I'm going to start with accumulation. I wanted in this, on this handout, for you to have the proper pronunciation because some of these words are familiar, like accumulation, alliteration, but you may not know anaphora or anastrophe, all right, and thymeria. So you have the stress syllable underlined for you. Let's begin with accumulation. It's one of the more common uses, one of the more common devices in Shakespeare, and especially in early Shakespeare. It is a combination of words without any increase or decrease in value or import. Here's an example. For princes are the glass, the school, the book. Now the glass would refer to the mirror, and this is also a book, which is a mirror, telling people how to behave at whatever level they're living at. The school, learning, and the book. All right, so these are equivalents. Let's compare to amplification. A combination of words that moves to a crescendo in importance. Now listen to this one, also from Lucrece. Reproach, disdain, and deadly enmity. It's clear that this is far heavier weighted, of greater import than simply reproach. All right, keep these two handy in your minds because these will be very useful. Another very common use is anaphora. Anaphora is where I have repetitions at the beginnings of, say, fragments of a line, mad world, mad kings, mad composition, or more commonly at the beginning of lines, if it be made of penetrable stuff, if damned custom have not brazed it so. Don't forget, usually ED is pronounced, huh? All right, so anaphora at the beginning of lines or at the beginning of segments within a line. Anastrophe sounds very unfamiliar to you, but you'll know it as Yoda speak. This is where we invert normal word order to create some rhetorical effect. It gives the speaker a certain loftiness when using this type of inversion. That's what Yoda was seeking too. The play's the thing wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king. If you were to read this directly, it would be, I'll catch the conscience of the king through my play. All right? I'm going to jump now, before I start talking about metaphor and metonymy, to 2 words that you need to know, and that is signified and signifier. These are the 2 parts of replacement figures. For example, a metaphor. So you have within a metaphor a signifier. What is missing is the signified. So a signifier is a word substituted for another based on some proximity, attribute, or quality for what is meant. It's the replacement. However, the signified is what's missing. So the replacement covers, the signifier covers the signified, if you will, and what you have, and Derrida and others will agree, is a blending of these 2 to create the image. All right, this is true for metaphor, metonymy, and metalepsis. We're going to start with metaphor. So, substitution of some attributive or suggestive word for what is meant, usually based on, here's your keyword, quality. The time is out of joint, or the morn in russet mantle clad. Both of these come from Hamlet. Is there a mantle that's a coat? Is it russet? And is the morning clad or clothed in that mantle? No, this is some sort of meteorological condition that is being described here, right? So I'll leave it to your imagination to fill in the signified. This is your signifier. The time is out of joint. Out of joint would describe the chaotic or unprincipled, shall we say, nature of the times. And he means his times. It's not a specific generalized time. He's talking about his times. Now, whereas metaphor is based on quality, metonymy is based on contiguity, proximity, touching. All right, so it's substitution of a signified by a word related through contiguity. The crown for royal prerogative, the sword for armed violence. And we're going to see synecdoche a little bit later for the category that involves part for the whole. So here, when Mark Antony says, friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears, you can think of Monty Python when they take off their ears, unscrew them, and throw them at the speaker. This is a form of metonymy where the capacity for hearing is represented by the piece or the ear, right? So you're talking about contiguity, it's touching. Here's another one, within his bending sickle's compass come. This is from a sonnet. The sickle, of course, is representative of death. So the bending sickle's compass, right? This is death's realm, if you will. But it's contiguity because of the touching of the sickle. Metalepsis is a little bit more complicated. It's what Bloom would call a metonymy of a metonymy. So we're going to base this on contiguity. This is when a word is twice removed from the signifier. You have to make two jumps in your mind before you come to the signified from the signifier. But there must be some relationship of contiguity for it to be clear. So, were I a common laughter, one of Cassius's lines in Julius Caesar, when he says laughter, he is talking about people who make fun of things, who make sport, who laugh easily, and it's the laughter that describes them. Or, why I desire thee to give me secret harbor hath a purpose more grave and wrinkled than the aims and ends of burning youth. So I have two things juxtaposed here, burning youth and grave and wrinkled purpose. What we should look at is that grave and wrinkled purpose. That's your metalepsis. A purpose can't be wrinkled. But if I go from that grave idea to the person who is planning something, who is older, then I can get a wrinkled purpose, right? This is not youth. This is a purpose of someone more circumspect. All right. So those are some figures of replacement that you'll need to know because Shakespeare jumps between these regularly. Why do we want to know these? Because we want to appreciate the way his mind works. We want to understand how he describes individuals or has individuals describe themselves through their language. What are they doing with their metaphors or these metonymic procedures? How do they reveal themselves? A last one I want to go over, and this is one that concerns repetition, kind of like anaphora. You had anaphora, and I'll give you one more very quickly here. Epistrophe, that's where you have repetition at the end. I'll have my bond, speak not against my bond, and I have sworn an oath that I will have my bond, right? That's epistrophe. Anaphora was repetition at the beginning. Here I have some repetition, but it's in more of it's in inverse order. I like to consider this kind of a formula. You know this. Fair is foul, and foul is fair. When I take something and invert it, I am creating a chiastic structure or a chiasmus. All right. So these are some of the more common uses in Shakespeare's vocabulary, which may at times make you think you don't quite understand what he's saying. But if you know how to take apart the lines so that you understand how they function, you're much more likely to come closer to the original meanings. And to finish, I want to look at parallelism, and I want to look at polysyndeton. Parallelism you're going to see a great deal of in Lucrece. This is when you have a series of words that have similar structures, words, phrases, clauses. And therefore, since I cannot prove a lover to entertain these fair, well-spoken days, I am determined to prove a villain and hate the idle pleasures of these days. All right, so you see that there is repetition in the form that is used. You're going to see this frequently in Lucrece. Please be looking for it. We're going to look at two more today. Sorry, I gave you false information there. We're going to look at two more. Polyptoton, which is repetition of words. Now these are word forms with the same meaning but different grammatical forms. So you've already seen it if you've started Lucrece. Haply that name of chaste, unhappily set. Will you please notice that your teacher uses single quotation marks within doubles? You need to do that when you're writing. All right? So the polyptoton is happily and unhappily. The same root word, two different grammatical forms, same meaning. But some untimely thought did instigate his all too timeless speed, if none of those. So untimely, timely, even though this is it's still the same root word, but simply different forms. Or bends with the remover to remove. Same things. Polyptoton. All right? And the last one is polysyndeton. This is a repetition of conjunctions. It stretches out a thought. And typically it's used by people who are grasping or under severe strain. If there be cords or knives, poison or fire or suffocating streams, I'll not endure it. Or. And typically it can be and or that works as the conjunction. Do you have some old friends on here such as simile? But I want you to be studying signifier and signified. I'd like for you to look those up and study a little bit the history of those words. And you also have a few footnotes at the end of this handout to help you go a little bit further in some of the terms. Thank you very much and see you next time.